Two of the most consistent players over HCT history. Thijs and Bunnyhoppor are going to be squaring off here. Both of them needing a win, both not in that top 3 spot at the moment. Thijs won this last time out, but with a mirror match and with Bunnyhoppor on a deck he's comfortable with, Gallon, how do you think this one's going to pan out?
Yeah, so Thijs beat him 2-0 in week 1 of Grandmasters, but I think that this will be very close, and I think that the skill edge will matter here. Whoever is better at this match, whoever is more well-prepared, will probably take it.
And my instinct for that is Bunnyhoppor, because he's been playing this deck fairly religiously for the last sort of 2 months in various forms. Whereas Thijs, obviously streaming means you play a wider range of decks. I mean, Bunnyhoppor does stream, but Thijs streams a more entertaining style of stream, a more sort of inventive style. And I do feel that Bunnyhoppor will have an edge in that regard. Let's have a look at the decks and the differences, not that there's that many.
I think that if you're looking at it, the one thing to notice is Bunnyhoppor is running a Revenge of the Wild in his primary, so that's something that Thijs will need to keep in mind. I also think that his secondary and tertiary both have some merit. You know, you can play a mind game with your opponent where, you know, Savannah Highmane in the mirror, if you land it when you're ahead, you're gonna win the game.
Yeah.
The problem is that if you're playing 6 drops, it's a lot harder to get ahead. So, I mean, there's some mind games here. Even the tertiary has some merit. You know, Rat Trap, Snake Trap, Headhunter's Hatchet are all probably pretty decent cards in the mirror. So, you know, you can play mind games.
Yeah, and because the secondary, tertiary decks they're more like tweaks to the deck than a change in the deck for both players. They're obviously aimed at various, you know, obvious things, but you can just go where you want. 2 Scavenging Hyenas in the tertiary deck there is so interesting as an option, depending how you feel your opponent's going to go.
Well, he's actually removing those and putting in a Rat Trap and a Revenge.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, no worries. I think that this has the same thing where, you know, Revenge of the Wild and your tertiary could mean that it's something that Bunnyhoppor needs to keep in mind, but he doesn't actually know if it's in the deck or not.
Yeah, and it's just so interesting that they haven't got super focused extra decks. Again, the Highmanes you discussed are focused at various things, like the Warriors in particular, Mages to some degree. But again, you can just put it in against the other Hunter if you think they're going to go too slow. You don't often see people switch from one deck to another and then to another, but we might see that in this one.
Yeah, I think that this doesn't happen that often in Specialists, but it can, where you can mind game your opponent, where every single one of your lists kind of does its own unique thing in the matchup. And if you get your opponent playing around one and you've got the other, you often win that kind of game.
Yeah, it's just fascinating to me because the differences don't look that big on paper, but if you happen to match it up correctly, they magnify into huge. They are not quick matches. It's not hits you in the face, apart from occasionally if you just curve straight through a hyena, occasionally you just win on the spot. But in general, you see a lot of the cards in this deck, so that those choices are going to matter a lot.
Yeah, I mean, small things can often add up to be huge. You know, like we're talking about missing 1 damage, but here we have like a ton of different cards that we can add to our deck. And if your opponent isn't playing around it, you can often get them. You know, Revenge of the Wild is a card where it says that, you know, if your opponent leaves your minions up, you get to take some value trades or just trade in your minions. Revenge of the Wild, that's how you often easily win a matchup. You know, 6 mana 5/5 from Unleash. Unleash the Beast.
Good.
Trade it in. Revenge of the Wild. You just got a 2 mana 5/5 out of that. That sounds insane.
So let's talk for a minute about how you would make that sort of decision on a wider basis. Do you factor in who you're playing and that sort of thing when you're making those choices in mirror matches, or?
I think it comes down a lot to preparation. I think that if they're well prepared, they'll probably have tested all 3 of their decks versus all 3 of the opponent's decks and may have come to the conclusion that, hey, maybe one of these is just strong enough that I'll always switch to it. Or, you know, the other thing is, hey, all of my decks work in some scenarios, so I kind of need, like, you know, some percentage of the time I'll queue this, some percentage of the time I'll queue the second deck, some percentage of the time I'll queue the third deck, and, you know, more preparation means they've figured out those percentages better.
And is it different? Is it a lot different preparing for one opponent than, say, what you did in Vegas, where you're preparing for a wide field, a wide range of skills to some degree as well?
Absolutely. So one thing that I can say is that when you're playing in the European Grandmasters, you know your opponent is good, right? So they will have prepared extensively against what you're bringing, which means you need to pull out all the stops a lot of the times to actually get them. One thing you can do is switching up what deck they expect. So, you know, again, mind games are probably going to apply here. Especially, and with Vegas, on the other hand, it's more of an open field. You're playing against people of varying skill, and also you're playing against an open field. So it's not one specific person, right? So when you're teching your decks, You know, you have, oh, this is my mage deck. Oh, this is my mech hunter deck.
Yeah.
It's not, oh, this is my anti-Thijs deck. You know what I mean? It's just a very different style.
It's a weird thing to me for grandmasters or super strong, well-known pros like yourself in the same bracket. If I was a medium player who's good enough to win an Open Cup and go to Vegas, you can take advantage of that to some extent because you're going to make the same prediction about guy I haven't heard of who's quite good. But that person will know who you are, so they know what prediction you're going to make about them. So if somebody sort of fire, I'm just going to ruin all your tournaments for the year now. If you're playing Gallon in your next tournament, you know what he's going to do. Just outwit him because he's got to stick to the same generic.
That would be really funny. You show up to a 300 person tournament, and they're all teched against you. They've all just 299 people are like, we're going to ruin this guy's day.
Yeah, we didn't like his casting, so we just deck A, secondary, kill Gallon, and the whole field just after you.
Please don't do that.
Get him, everybody.
Yeah, I mean, well, the other thing is that, again, it's just like such a different tournament experience. I think like even among like Open Cups versus the Masters tours versus even Grandmasters, you know, there's so many different ways of playing Hearthstone right now. Like with Open Cups, a lot of times you are just jamming, you know, like an aggressive deck. You aren't thinking that much because you're just trying to jam the games. But when you're in an actual Masters tour, you might be bringing like a very slow control warrior where you have to play hours and hours to get through the game. But
to get through game one,
just for that like extra 0.5% win rate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then like in the actual Grandmaster League, you got to spend so much time just like thinking about your next two opponents. So again, like even though we're playing the same format throughout, which is best of 3 specialists, the ways of approaching it are just so different depending on what the field is.
Talking about the format, let's talk for a minute about the bigger picture. So obviously we've said it once or twice because it's a big deal. Really good to have somebody on the desk who is a big deal, and we've got Gallon as well. So where does that result in Vegas put you in the scheme of things? Obviously, you've got a chance now of becoming a Grandmaster yourself.
Yeah, so the way they're doing it, it's based off of prize money you earn at Masters Tour stops. If you are top 2 in your region, so the Americas region for me, you find yourself in a chance for making it into Grandmasters for next year. Second place, I lost to Dog, so that's unfortunate, but he's already a Grandmaster in North America. So if he doesn't get relegated, then I don't really have to worry about him, which kind of puts me in the lead for the Americas region. I'm feeling pretty good about it. Again, there's a huge chance that I don't make it. Let's say, you know, Americans pull it together and we win Bucharest and Korea. That'd be cool to see. However, I'd be a little bit I'd be a little bit upset about it. But you know, I wouldn't mind. I think that, you know, Americas has a lot of strong players, and seeing something like that would be
doing that on your home turf is big because the home
field
the
advantage.
home area has a natural advantage. First of all, more people turn up because it's easier to get to, and secondly, there's definitely home advantage in terms of tiredness and traveling. A lot of people fly in the day before from all around the world.
Yeah.
And in your case, you just have a quick flight down there, no change in time zones, get on with your game.
I think that Americans, for the most part, don't travel nearly as much as the European and Asia-Pacific players. I think that, especially the Europeans, they travel to everything. I think at Vegas, there was like 25 French players, and they were all strong. They were all strong players.
Yeah, the French community is insane in Hearthstone. I remember the Hearthstone Global Games, we basically deliberately chose not to pick the French players to win it, just to annoy them. We were all Brits, like, we're not going to pick the French, we're just going to wind them up. But yeah, the French community all sticks together. The tour stop system last year, we saw a lot of French players. But enough of that. We are going to get into the first game of the day. It's Thijs and Bunnyhoppor, both on the Hunter. And Gallon, these mulligan decisions are quite hard in this matchup as it is, except one of those cards.
I've never seen a hand in the mid-range Hunter Mirror or the Beast Hunter Mirror that I've wanted to forekeep. I think that's because I just haven't played enough of it. What I will say is that Master's Call is by far the best card in the deck in the early game. I'm sure Bunny is ecstatic to see that in his hand. I wonder if he's going to keep something like Dire Frenzy. I don't think he will, but like it's an interesting consideration. From Thijs' side, not the best hand. Tracking on turn 1 for a Master's Call is pretty good, but besides that, it's a little bit of air.
Yeah, Deadly Shot obviously pretty weak in the mirror mostly. There's moments where it comes in very handy, but you don't want it in that opener, obviously. I know you say the Dire Frenzy decision's the interesting one because he will have things to fuel that very early on because of the Master's Call.
Yeah. I mean, this is just a weird matchup because a lot of times you're playing for tempo in Hearthstone. in this matchup, it feels like your tools always get answered. So like your minions always die, and it just goes on and on and on and on.
Yeah, it's weird because you've got to have enough tempo to be in the lead, but not enough to let your opponent just get a massive value out of a hyena unleash turn and just ruin you. And so you constantly, from what I've seen at least, want to be putting enough on the board. They have to spend their mana to deal with the board, so they don't make their own board, and then you just keep doing that. But also value matters as well to some extent. You force your tempo into ruining their value as the game goes on, because it will go pretty deep in the deck.
I mean, if your stuff keeps getting answered, that's fine. At some point, they're going to run out of resources to actually kill your stuff. And when that happens, they very quickly die. You know, once you get an awkward hand, it's just so hard to get back in the game.
I think the quieter card in this deck is Unleash the Beast as well. You always get to turn 6 with a pretty level situation. Again, forgetting the disclaimer about the hyenas. And it's just such a difficult card to deal with. You've got to deal with it 2 turns in a row. And it does seem if you've got that card on 6, you're in a great spot, especially with the Master's Call on 3.
It also makes your endgame just so strong with Zul'jin. Zul'jin is a card that if you have like 2 Unleash the Beast in it, suddenly becomes this amazing tempo swing where you get 2 5/5s with Rush along with, you know, a dozen other spells that affect the board positively.
Is Zul'jin nearly always just a jam as soon as you get to 10 mana? Obviously, if it's answered by your opponent's Zul'jin, you're
Well, you
not
hope
happy.
it is. You hope it is, because if it isn't, that means the game has been going kind of sideways. If you haven't been playing the good spells, you know, probably not the best hand.
Always remember that with UI. Whenever I was casting with Daruk, every time somebody had Ultimate Infestation in their hand, I'd be like, so, does he have to play this Daruk? Knowing full well, of course he did. Like, just used to wind him up by making some excuse. Well, you could do this. He'd be like, no, stop it.
Generally, playing a 10-mana card on turn 10 is a reasonable play.
Yeah, you don't put 10-mana cards in your deck unless they're good, right?
Yeah.
Or unless you're going to lay them on turn 4 as 8/8 or something like that.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a different scenario. Lerinda is talking about specifically Sea Giant in this case.
Sea Giant, Play Giant. So again, Bunnyhoppor not worried about the immediate massive threat of taking 2 damage from his opponent, just getting on with setting up his hand. And from this point onwards, he will be looking to get a big swing turn in at some point. He'll deal with bits and pieces for now, and then there'll be a turn in the future. If he's not dead, he is taking a bit of damage.
This is actually a really scary scenario for Bunnyhoppor.
Yeah.
He went for Coin Master's Call, which I don't disagree with. However, Thijs pretty much has the perfect animal companion here, where everything is now a threat, and he can't answer the Leok.
And things get out of control quickly. If you get down sort of into the teens in damage and you haven't swung the game around, you just get hero power to death with the bits and pieces that are taking care of your board at the same time.
I think that this is very similar to the Rogue matchup, where you very often don't take damage. That's not what we're seeing this game, but you very often don't take damage until around like turn 6 or turn 7. However, if you do get hit in the face for 5 or 6, suddenly the game is just over, because your opponent has burst damage in their deck, and they can kind of just relax, you know, just click the button a couple times, and then, you know, you're at 12 or something to go Beast, kill command, hero power, on to the next one.
And there's so much to think about each turn, because you have to be ready for... It's not just control the board as I see it, because your opponent can just switch to the burn plan so easily. You've got to have that in your mind from a long way out. Even on 25, Bunnyhoppor will be thinking, okay, got to start dealing with this. Obviously, he really would have loved to save that Unleash for later. He's got so many buffs in hand that go with it, but nope, would have taken another 8. That is way too much.
I think Ty's hand right now is just absolutely perfect for what he wants to do. He has the life lead right now. He's going to be pushing even more damage this turn with possibly a hero power plus Headhunter's Hatchet. And he has the follow-up. He's got Unleash plus Timberwolf and a kill command. So if Bunnyhoppor ever tries to go wide into the board, Thijs has the punish with Timberwolf Unleash, and then the following turns he can just kill command Bunnyhoppor in the face. He's dead.
On the other side of that, though, if Bunnyhoppor even sticks a 1/1 for any period of time here, that Dire Frenzy backed up with bits and pieces over the next few turns, if Thijs doesn't get it done quickly with his hand, this will swing around on about turn 7 or 8.
But Thijs has the answer for that with Mark Shot. You know, for the first couple turns, I think Thijs is actually in a really good spot to answer that.
Yeah, so not letting the Dire Frenzy happen, but still pushing as much face damage as he dare. And 4's a lot. It doesn't sound like much in a lot of matchups. If you're playing Warrior, for instance, you can take 4 all day long unless it's the mirror, but in this, no way.
That's more than 10% of his opponent's life total. That's an eviscerate. Whoa, he's going for Timberwolf here. I'm really not sure if I like that.
So it immediately cost him 1 damage because he didn't get the hero power in. and it's also costing potential damage with the Unleash. On the other side of it, there's a great chance that something is on the board next turn.
Well, I think what Thijs is thinking is, okay, I played a couple 1/1s already. They weren't answered, right?
Yeah.
If I play this now, it's very unlikely that he answers it still. However, my problem with it is that when you have an Unleash the Hounds, you can kind of force your opponent in this awkward spot where they have to develop minions, and then that combo of Timberwolf plus Unleash, it just blows them out of the water. When you have a life lead like this, where you're 6 ahead, plus you've got a weapon up, plus the hero power, I think that just holding back your resources and just punishing your opponent for playing for tempo, which is something that they have to do, is pretty crucial.
Possible that Thijs saw it a little bit differently to you in terms of the hand. Maybe he's feeling the pressure to get the damage in really quickly and hope it sticks. It has stuck, so he called that right. And maybe he's feeling this hand's got to get it done with what he's got, because he is down to 3 cards. Yes, they're good, but you can see your resources getting depleted here.
Master's Call.
That's the end of that problem, then.
That is so good. For a second, I thought that was off Mark shot. I was like, wow, this is a good Mark shot. But no, we got it off the tracking, so that makes more sense. However, I still think that Thijs isn't pushing his lead as aggressively as he should be. I think that something like hero powering every single turn when you're so far ahead of your opponent in the life point race is a really good thing to keep in mind. When you Mark shot a 1/1, not only are you missing that resource, but you're also just missing damage.
And this is where the game could start to turn around. Bunnyhopper's still on 21. It's still okay. And he is getting into the big guns in the next few turns.
I think that what Bunnyhoppor really wants right now is a Vicious Scalehide. I think with Dire Frenzy, Vicious Scalehide becomes the best card in his deck by a mile.
Yeah, especially as he's got the card advantage to, if he's alive, he will win. I mean, that's fairly straightforward numbers, but if he can just keep himself alive for the next 3 or 4 turns, assuming Thijs doesn't get a Zul'jin in that time.
Dire Frenzy. Not the best right now.
Awkward.
And I mean, this is kind of what I'm talking about. We could have Mark shot this turn on a 4/4. Yes, he gets Scavenging Hyena, but suddenly our opponent took 4 last turn, and he's taking another 4 this turn.
And now you're looking at having to maybe Master's Call and Kill Command just to clear the board and pass with no mana left to your opponent who's got a handful of cards they've been saving all game. And this is where the game could definitely start getting away from Thijs.
I think we're actually giving Bunnyhoppor an out now with Vicious Scalehide Dire Frenzy if he has it.
Yeah, and what has he got? I mean, he's not done a whole lot this game. There's a great chance that he's got it. As it happens, he hasn't yet. But he's got the other Master's Call, he's got the tracking. He should find what he's looking for sooner rather than later.
Yeah, Master's Call is really important here. Still pushing his lead. Bunnyhoppor at 18, not comfortable with that. Does that make you want to just play Unleash the Beast here? Do you think you have enough time to just jam a 5/5?
Maybe. I mean, I always look at the insta clears, which is definitely not the way to go. You've got to at some point take a chance and not die, and then spend a turn sorting it out. But he's going to go Master's Calling, looking for those Scale Hides, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a really wise decision. You need to get it down as soon as possible, and if you do it this turn, you're nearly guaranteed to get one. Ooh, Spring Fire is also quite good.
Important thing on his health total here as well. Sometimes you get low enough that your opponent just stops playing anything at all and beats you down with hero powers and weapons and maybe an Unleash. But of course, Bunnyhopper's on 18. Thijs is still going to have to commit to play minions, which means that the Scale Hide can gain a lot of health for Bunnyhoppor.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to my point about how in the mid game you just want to push damage, because if your opponent does have Vicious Scale Hide Dire Frenzy, but you have no minions in play, they can't actually benefit from that. You know, it has Rush, not Charge, so it can't just hit you in the face for 4. If they go Vicious Scale Hide Dire Frenzy and you have, the burst damage to just kill them the next turn, that doesn't even matter.
Yeah, and Thijs in a bit of a spot now. This game is now going to go long with them both having the Scale Hide option available to them. I mean, I say it's going to go long. With Zul'jin there, you do start wanting to just jam those Unleash the Beasts and find a spot to do that.
I mean, I think with the way the game is going, is that Bestial Wrath? He just gets an extra 2 HP as well.
So handy.
That's so good.
Bestial Wrath allowing you to just get a free trade, basically.
Do you do it this turn, though?
So you work backwards from Zul'jin, right? You're playing Zul'jin on turn 10 in the ideal world. You want to get your 2 Unleash the Beast down before that. That's turns 9 and 8 or 7, 8, whichever 2 you choose. this might be the turn to do it, because you might not have time to do it till then.
Yeah, I think you always Vicious Scale Dire Frenzy here. I was more talking about the Beast.
Yeah, I think you just play it, because when have you got 1 mana spare for the rest of this game?
Sure, but you could also do something like tracking instead, and try to just get the...
There you go.
Get the second Scale Hide now, instead of later. And he gets it.
Like that, you mean?
Yes. I don't see a world where he doesn't take it. You know, he is still at the light disadvantage. Yep.
Yeah. He paused for what, because he's Bunnyhoppor and he's known for playing fairly slowly in important matchups. He can't instantly take it, because otherwise Thijs will know exactly what he's got. The only time you should instantly take it there if you're Bunnyhoppor is when it's not there. You just take something quickly and pretend, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of mind games you can play with your opponent. I think that the longer you wait on stuff, generally the harder it is for your opponent to read you.
Yeah, that's fair, especially at this level. I think in Open Cup level, maybe the opposite in general. If your opponent takes a long time, they tend to be confused or struggling.
I mean,
with the decision, I don't mean to say they're confused and struggling in general life, just on the choice.
Thijs is still just playing for tempo here. Can't argue with that. One thing that I want to bring up is that when you Dire Frenzy without a Zul'jin in your hand, you get slightly less odds of drawing it over the course of the game. You know, you shovel 3 things that aren't Zul'jin into your deck. You know, 1 in 10, which is what it was before to get Zul'jin. Now it's a 1 in 13. Bunnyhoppor has a Zul'jin in his hand. If Thijs doesn't find it in time, I think that Bunnyhoppor will just run away with this game.
Yeah, and Bunnyhoppor is the one who has to calculate what time he has. So I think he's probably got a decent read on the kill command at this point, being something that's dangerous for him at least.
He's at 26, he can clear this board, and Thijs has 2 cards in his hand. I think that he's got all the time in the world right now.
And Bunnyhoppor doesn't really need to worry about how he's going to finish the game. I could finish the game if I get there. Lobbing out a Zul'jin after a couple of 5/5s are made and just take your chance with the rest seems fine to me. So yeah, clear a couple of boards.
I think Bunnyhoppor right now has a lot of options, and they're all pretty good.
Yeah, I think it's hard to play this turn perfectly, but it's very hard to play it badly.
Yeah. He's just so far ahead now with like the amount of cards that he got in the mid game that. Do you even beast show? Yep. I like this. Just reserve health on your minion. Make it harder for Thijs to answer it. You've already seen a deadly shot. He doesn't have Zul'jin mana next turn. Thijs is only playing 1 deadly shot. Ooh, Hunter's Mark. Well, that's an answer for the Vicious Scale Hide.
It is, and he needs it, but he is on the back foot. He's in that situation we were talking about where he's now in the position where he's got to kill everything Bunnyhoppor does, and Bunnyhoppor's got plenty of things to do over the next few turns.
I mean, Thijs started this so aggressively, but now Bunnyhoppor's at 30 life and has the card advantage and has the Zul'jin.
When you word it like that, it sounds quite a good spot to be in.
Yeah.
But we saw it even from turn 3. If Thijs doesn't get over the line when he played that Timberwolf, it's going to be difficult for him to compete without a Zul'jin.
And that's kind of what I mean about this matchup, where like there's a lot of different ways to play it, and every game is pretty different, I would say. You know, that was...
I just took a bit of breath there because I was thinking that the snake trap...
Also, was
Bunny's not in a mode for trading right now. You're the trader.
Was the Hunter's Mark just like not good here? Could we not have gone like Hunter's Mark? We do take an extra 4. I guess we heal it back up with the Vicious Scale Hide. It was just interesting.
It's better to put your face into a 4/6 on a 5/5, which is coming soon.
Sure. Bunny can just deadly shot this. I think he's happy just doing that.
Yeah, and just drop and Unleash the Beast, I think, even though it gives your hand away. It doesn't matter if you give your hand away if your opponent hasn't got any way of dealing with it. Set yourself up for turn 11 Zul'jin.
Yeah, you got to be thinking from Bunnyhopper's spot. Okay, he's kept this card since turn 1, or it's been in his hand since turn 1.
Yeah.
It's either Burn or it's Zul'jin. You know,
Yes.
I think he's going to be ecstatic to see that Thijs doesn't rip his Zul'jin next turn.
Yeah, this is a little bit of prep in case that happens, because then you can counter with your Unleash the Beast or Zul'jin, depending how it goes for Thijs.
Yep.
And you don't want to put too much on the board, because you don't want Thijs to get Unleash value out of his Zul'jin.
Thijs has drawn 2 Vicious Scale Hides, by the way. Is that a 4/6? It might be a 1/3, but if it's a 4/6, that like kind of brings back to my point of how shuffling more Vicious Scale Hides in your deck reduces the odds of getting Zul'jin.
Yeah, if that's a bomb now, it explodes, you get another card, and it could be Zul'jin. It's not. It's a Vicious Scale Hide. It just stays in your hand, being irritating and not useless, but not the card you're looking for.
You're saying you'd rather have a bomb on the top than the Scale Hide on the top.
Yeah.
I guess, right?
it's
It's pretty funny to think about.
it's kind of terrifying, really.
Yeah.
Thijs should have ordered a bomb. And now the question for Thijs, obviously there's easy clears, but where's the easy clear that allows him to not lose the Hearthstone game 2 turns later?
You play your Vicious Scale Height here, but it's just going to die to a Deadly Shot off the Zul'jin next turn if Bunnyhoppor has it, and he does.
And Bunnyhoppor knows that Hunter's Mark is a random card, it's not a Zul'jin. So now it's just a case of how greedy Bunnyhoppor wants to be. Playing the Zul'jin immediately made sense, but now he's got the Deadly Shot. He has the option to Deadly Shot and just drop a Tundra Rhino.
Or just Deadly Shot, Unleash the Beast again, and then make his Zul'jin even more powerful next turn.
Yeah,
Which, I actually don't mind that. I think that, you know, juicing up your Zul'jin in this spot kind of like puts you in a spot where you never lose.
Yeah, you can even consider playing the Rhino next turn into Zul'jin and just try and kill your opponent in one go.
Sure, sure.
I mean, basically in this position, Thijs needs, not a miracle, but he needs a Zul'jin to have a chance. Yeah, he realizes it. No.
That is not a Zul'jin. That's about as far away from Zul'jin as you could possibly get.
And
Not even a spell.
We were talking in the pre-show about what you do in game number 2. It shouldn't impact you how game number 1 plays out, because you've played this game out a million times and this is just one iteration of it. But does it play on your mind? Do you think, okay, these hatchets have been terrible this game? Do I sort of not use them in game 2? Or I mean, you should stick to the plan, but do people stick to the plan?
I think that the more preparation that goes in will help you determine that. I think that if Thijs has played this matchup a lot, then he'll know, hey, this was just a case of, you know, this one specific match, he had the cards that answered mine. But if he isn't prepared, then maybe he's saying, oh no, I really need to switch to X deck or Y deck. I think that Thijs is someone that prepares. It might not be as much as Bunnyhoppor.
It's something that you always get when you talk to Thijs, is he wants people to know that he really does genuinely love winning. He loves playing Hearthstone. He loves preparing. And the image that comes across from his stream sometimes isn't that, but he's constantly fighting that image of, look, he played like 3 or 4 qualifiers last year for Tour Stops and had one of the best records in the world when he wanted to try. You know, when it was one he wanted to go to.
I mean, he's literally the most winning player of all time in Hearthstone.
Yes.
In terms of prize.
Yeah, he nearly lost it this weekend, but he didn't. If Tom had won,
yes,
then he would have lost it. But yeah, he had more money out of competitions, and he's played not that many compared to some of the longer grinders.
Yeah, I mean, Thijs is a fantastic player in his own right.
Yeah.
However, this game is...
This is why we're talking about other things, right? Because
Yeah.
this game, if you're watching this chat and you don't know how to win this game, get practicing really, really hard. Because I could win this game.
Yeah, from this spot, I think that Bunnyhoppor actually played this incredibly well. I think that was actually could be a hard game to win, but he spotted what he was supposed to do. He said, hey, I'm going to be playing control. Even from the start of turn 2, we went Coin Master's Call instead of Coin Animal Companion.
And that's something we don't talk about much, actually. So everybody who watches a lot of Hearthstone knows, hey, one deck's the control deck and one deck's the aggro deck in every matchup. But when it's a mirror matchup, that still applies depending on how the game starts. You've got to quickly identify which time you're the aggressive deck and which time you are the defensive deck.
Yeah, I think that in this case, Bunnyhoppor really did a good job of understanding, even from the start of this game, the macro game plan.
And then here comes all the things. Not many people in the world better than Bunnyhoppor playing against an empty hand where you can just maths it out completely, work out exactly your ordering based on complete information. Yeah, and here's the things that we've been talking about for a while. Very likely to be lethal.
He's got lethal, I believe. He has a coin, he can just go coin Timberwolf. Even if he didn't get this 6-5, which was guaranteed at the very end of it.
Bunnyhoppor takes a 1-0 lead. He did lose to Thijs last time around in week 1 of Grandmasters, so, I mean, these players play enough Hearthstone that they can take that sample size, but still, you don't want somebody to beat you 3 or 4 seasons in a row over and over. That can start playing on your mind. So good to get that one out of the way for the first one of the day. And a Hunter Mirror. Why have people brought Hunter?
I'm not sure the answer to that. I really like Bomb Warrior, personally. But
really?
Yeah.
No, I felt that Hunter was a good bring this week. I think that each week there's a default deck you expect, and this week was Mage. Because of the success in Vegas. You would expect Mage to be the deck that people were concentrating on this week. And so I think that Hunter's the first level deck that doesn't go too crazy and try and outguess everybody.
Yeah.
But as it's turned out, Hunter this week hasn't turned out to be that great a bring because very few people have actually brought the mage. They've all gone one level higher and said, okay, I'm going to bring the anti-mage.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at pretty much a mirror match game one. So,
Yeah.
like, when you're playing a mirror, you're not unhappy to see that. You know, it's a pretty 50-edge matchup because, you know, it's a mirror, but you're also not very happy because you were trying to outguess your opponent, and if you both landed on, like, the same level.
And talking of landing on the same level, we've got the choices in for game number 2, and they both switched to their secondary decks for this. So, high main time.
Yeah, so what they're saying is high main is really good. I really want to play it before my opponent does. I got to play high main.
Yeah, the best. Yeah, if you're going to play it, you've got more chance of playing it before your opponent.
Yeah, exactly. If you put it in your deck, it's a card that you can play. I think that's very, very smart.
Life Drink is interesting as well, actually, because we're talking about the small differences between, say, 14 and 17 health when your opponent goes into power-up mode or into face mode. And Life Drink can mess with that calculation somewhat.
I mean, we even saw in that game that it was a very aggressive start from Thijs, and it still ended up going to turn 10. Something like Unleash the Beast in the mid-game seemed very powerful. You know, it's a card that you play, and it pretty much does its thing twice. You play Unleash the Beast, Zul'jin also plays Unleash the Beast. At that point, it becomes actually a very good tempo card.
Yeah, and I was saying, like, how Unleash the Beast, you wouldn't mind having 3 of them in your deck. There's not that many cards you say that about that are 6 mana, but High Main just gives you another one.
Sure. Yeah, they're pretty similar in what they do. They're hard things for they get value in the mid game. You play them, it's awkward for your opponent.
And it's this narrow tempo that you've been describing, where you want to have the board control and the tempo, but you want to do it over 1 or 2 minions rather than the traditional way like Rogue does it, which is just, here's my stuff, please wear it in your face.
Yeah, I mean, you have to really sequence your threats. And I think especially with Zul'jin in the deck, you've just got to keep a good answer for everything while also, you know, developing a tempo.
Well, there's some high mains.
There are high mains. There's 3.
Let's see how many they decide to actually go with.
I would say 0.
I would say 0 too. It's really weird, right?
Yeah.
The card you really want on turn 6, you don't want on turn 1.
If you don't have the answers for your opponent's early game, then high main doesn't actually do its job. You want to have like board parity until turn 6-ish, turn 5, slam it on an empty board, and then your opponent has a tough time answering it.
Do we still call high main the 2 of legendary in this day and age?
I don't think so. I think that its power level has kind of gone down a bit, I would say. I think it's still a very good card.
And Thijs, being the player with the coin, being the player with the extra coin, with the extra card, did choose to keep a high main on the assumption that I'm drawing 4 more cards before turn 1. I can get away with keeping one, and that's paid off for him by the look of it in this opener.
You know, I don't really mind that. I would have liked it more if he had something already like a Master's Call in his hand, or maybe, you know, a Shimmerfly. But I still don't mind it. I think having your best card on turn 5 is often right in these kinds of matchups.
And that will all come down to how much preparation he's done, whether that's a maths call or a feel call as to keeping that one high main. Maybe he's done this mulligan a million times and realizes, I do everything a million times today. But maybe he's realized, okay, I can actually get away with it most of the time because I'm on the draw.
I think it's pretty interesting because it's kind of a doubly good card. People spent a lot of time last season before rotation playing mid-range hunter, you know, with Deathstalker Rexar. Now this is a very different build of the deck. I would argue that it's a lot less powerful, but there's still like a lot of concepts that apply. One of them was, hey, we've kind of learned that Savannah high main as early as possible is an easy way to win the game. If your opponent gets hit in the face for 6, they very often die. Going back to the last game, you know, like there was a line that Thijs could have taken, which is just, you know, kill your opponent with hero powers after you deal a couple damage in the early game. Savannah high main kind of just accomplished that goal all in one. Even if they kill the 6/5 body with something like Unleash the Beast, there's still 2 hyenas they have to deal with. And they're getting hit in the face for 4, so it's just like doubly accomplishing what you want to do. It establishes tempo, hits your opponent in the face.
And talking of which, the Headhunter's Hatchets have been taken out of the decks. And so Bunnyhoppor here, fairly comfortably playing this hyena just onto the board to challenge. And if your opponent has to kill it with Springpaw, okay, they're doing nothing else this turn. So
remember that Bunny doesn't actually know that the Headhunter's Hatchets are out of the deck. He just has to make an educated guess that Thijs played it out.
But if his guess is, I'm going to play my secondary, in general you can, but you're right, he doesn't actually know, only we know that.
Yeah.
Because we're special.
Now this is interesting. Thijs actually has one of the few answers to this. If you play your own Scavenging Hyena and your opponent doesn't have an answer to it, you're going to die very quickly, or they're going to die very quickly.
Yeah, I want to see how Bunny progresses from here, because these are the games when I play this mirror match, this exact situation where I just do not know what to do. I mean, player Huffer is a really good play here. Unfortunately, it only works one time in 3, so you've got to work out How quickly do I die? And the answer is quickly. And what other options do I have? He can Master's Call and look for ways out, but there's a good chance that doesn't actually get you out for 2 turns. Now you're eating 12 more damage plus some hero powers. He may be forced to go for the Huffer.
Master's Call, you're taking a guaranteed 6, if not more, right? You know, if your opponent rolls their own Animal Companion into like a Leok or something, you're kind of out of that game because there's just too much stuff for you to deal with and too little time. With Animal Companion here, yeah, you're taking a risk with the Huffer, but sometimes even if you don't land on it, you still get something like a Misha.
Yeah.
Right. So you're looking at 2 and 3 like decent outcomes. Obviously, a Huffer would be amazing here, but I think a Misha is often okay as well.
She's going for it. We're going to find out. The Misha arrives.
Thijs currently doesn't have an answer to it. Still doesn't have an answer to it.
And that's where keeping the high main was a decision in the mulligan.
So really quickly, there is one way for Thijs to have a hyena left on the board. He could trade both his Unleash the Hounds and his Timberwolf in. He would get 5 health on his high main. Then it goes to 1 HP at the end because he takes the trade.
Yeah.
I don't think it's good. I think it's actually a pretty terrible play, but it is something to keep in mind. I think that you pretty much always play Master's Call here. I don't see a world where you don't, but...
The world where your arcane shots your own Shimmer Fly
yeah,
try and get... I've just been trying to process that while you were talking.
Yeah, you get Bestial Wrath. Yeah.
I don't think he needs to do that, but if he was all in on this play, he might have to.
That sounds a little bit, counter to what you're trying to do.
Yeah, 99% of the time, if you're trying to be ambitious, you're probably doing it wrong.
Yeah.
But then occasionally you do have to make the play like Bunnyhoppor just made, which is Animal Companion can lose me the game. If it rolls Leok, nothing's better than this opportunity.
Thijs decided instead of doing that to play the best card in his deck on turn 3 for 3 mana.
Doesn't sound like a bad idea.
That sounds like a pretty smart play by Thijs, playing the Master's Call turn 3.
It took me a while to get over the counter-intuitive thing of I'm playing a tempo-ish deck that does nothing on turn 3.
I don't think it does nothing. Remember
That's the point that isn't so obvious when you're trying to just spam the board with tempo.
Sure.
So I'm just going to give up tempo for a turn, but now I can just get it so much back and more on turn 4 and 5.
Yeah, I mean, I think this match was a lot about, like, it is a lot about card advantage. You need the resources.
Thijs quite obviously trying to just keep hold of the board so that if you're this far ahead on board, even with this small amount of stuff, your opponent going into their turn 6 won't be able to play the high main because you just ignore the high main and whack them again.
Sure, but I think Bunnyhoppor can be a little bit more liberal here with using his Vicious Scalehide. Obviously, he could save it for the Dire Frenzy, but instead if he just goes Timberwolf, Scalehide the 1/1, links the 4/2, he has board again. His opponent will have to at least react to it because if he doesn't, he's going to fall behind.
And he's trying to do the same thing. He's trying to have the
Bunnyhoppor
board going into
can just
Thijs' turn
land
6.
the high main, and then Bunnyhoppor will win that game.
Yeah.
So I don't think Bunnyhoppor is actually the control deck in this specific spot. I think that Bunnyhoppor can play for tempo, play to just kill Thijs here, and I think it actually works out pretty nicely. It's a hard call to make because just having a Master's Call already in your hand means that like going Vicious Scalehide Dire Frenzy is like such a powerful play. But I think right now just seizing tempo is actually really strong.
Yeah, that's what he's going to go with it. Must point out, he did go 9 and 3 in Vegas, Bunnyhoppor as well, so picking up a very good result there. And the Grandmasters in general, for the large part, did pretty well in Vegas.
Someone put the stats, I think they averaged around 55, 56%.
Yeah, in a field against people who've won Open Cups.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty, that is good.
It is really good.
Yeah. Thijs has a lot of answers to this. However, the answer will not be tempo. He might develop a 1/2, another 1/1, something like that, but Bunnyhoppor is kind of free to just land the Scavenging or the Savannah high main.
I think Bunnyhoppor also now knows that Thijs has a high main in hand, because what else could that mulligan be? He's seen the Master's Call, which wasn't that card. And I think it's starting to become clear. I mean, in some worlds it could be a Zul'jin, I guess, but...
It's so hard to say, right?
Yeah, especially with this particular deck, because there's so many things you can try and do with it.
I think that you could maybe get the read. I think it makes more sense in the context of like a 3 or 4 keep. Like if you kept 3 cards and you saw 2 of them and one just hasn't been played yet, it's most likely something like Savannah high main. Thijs just doing the math here, seeing if he can get an extra life point out of it. Either way he does it, he ends up at 29. 29 for sure.
I knew that was coming next. That's why I had the preemptive little giggle to myself. Still decision times here for Bunny, but not particularly hard ones.
I kind of like playing a Savannah Highman on turn 6 by itself. You know, Dire Frenzy, yeah, you don't really want your opponent to have Dire Frenzy, Vicious Scalehide. However, they aren't really killing your Savannah Highman.
Yeah.
If they do kill your Savannah Highman, you still have tempo.
But you wouldn't mind Dire Frenzying your own high main, and it's probably not staying around till next turn.
Sure.
That's the only decision for me.
Well, you don't mind Dire Frenzying any beast. Like, if you land on any single beast, you draw the beast, generally you get more tempo from that card.
Sure.
You know, you could Dire Frenzy a Hyena off of Savannah Highman. You're still happy with that. 2 mana, 5/5, good card. That kills your opponent.
The other factor in this game for both players here is you tend to assume your opponent has got a good chance of having Zul'jin by now. And it's going to get that deep. They're both basically on the starting health totals.
Oh, Bunny goes for Unleash the Beast here. So he is really worried about that Dire Frenzy Vicious Scalehide. He might be saying that if I just never give my opponent this this opportunity, then I can at some point just pressure them out, and they do not have the answer for it.
And you were talking about the skill in this matchup. Well, these hands are borderline identical. Obviously, they're not. You can see the differences for yourselves, but they're both doing the same thing at roughly the same speed right now.
Well, what I will say is that Thijs has a play that can make him be the one that lands the high main first. If he goes something like Tundra Rhino Arcane Shot here, just kill the 5/4 with his weapon in the Arcane Shot,
Yes.
Bunnyhoppor is going to be forced to react to that with something like Deadly Shot. He doesn't go for it, though.
Yeah, now Bunnyhopper's play from last turn is really going to stand him in a great spot.
Against specifically Savannah High Main, this was a wonderful play. You pretty much get to develop your own. You get rid of the first 6/5 body. But I wonder if Thijs missed an opportunity there to just...
Your play makes a lot of sense. You can't leave a Tundra Rhino chilling on the board.
Yeah, so one thing is that if we look at Thijs' list, he's only running one Tundra Rhino. He might be trying to save that for later, where he's saying, oh, okay, if I just assemble a bunch of cheap beasts with my Tundra Rhino, I could burn Thijs out of the game. But sometimes you kind of just have to forego that opportunity and just play for tempo again. If you land a Tundra Rhino, that is something that your opponent has to answer, which means that they cannot play their good card, which is Savannah High Main in this case. There's a lot of back and forth here between both players. They're trying to force each other off of the good plays. And I think there might be a couple missed opportunities this game.
Yeah, Bunnyhoppor, again, I talk about it a lot. He's played this so many times, this deck. And things do become... Like, if you're learning Hearthstone play, you play the deck 100 times and you think you've mastered it. If you play it 1,000 times, you'll realise that when you played it 100 times, you were terrible. Yeah. Whoever you are.
I absolutely love this play for Bunny, by the way. Making it incredibly awkward for Thijs to answer this board. He still is going to have tempo for next turn.
Yeah, he's just make your own high main.
Yeah.
He just played another high main onto the board, pretty much.
For 2 mana, not a bad play. Thijs here still has answers to this. This is where the Master's Call from previously comes into play, where, you know, he just has the card advantage now.
And again, but he's got to start using those cards in a hurry. And I think going back to the play, or the non-play of the Tundra Rhino you were talking about, this is the direct consequence of that, the fact he's now on his back foot.
You know, he has the 1-drops now for Tundra Rhino, but I think he just has to use them as reactive tools now. You know, sometimes Timberwolf, Spring Paw, Lynx plus Tundra Rhino is a lot of damage, but you might just have to use those now to deal with the 6/4.
I don't think there's a matchup in Hearthstone at the moment that ebbs and flows quite as much as this one. Maybe some Mage mirrors sometimes, but the Hunter mirror just seems to always have 2 or 3 phases of somebody else leading, apart from if they get an early Hyena, that's the exception to the rule.
I mean, I think it's something like there's like off turns for both players where they're doing something besides tempo, and if they don't take those off turns, they just end up in spots where they don't have the tools to answer.
Yeah, and the timing of those is the key. Suddenly, Bunnyhoppor's behind on board by 1, but don't think that's going to bother him too much.
No, I think that he's like quite happy here. Now this is a different spot than last time. Last time he played Unleash the Beast to kill a 1/2. He could do it again to kill a 1/1. However, what he was killing was a Vicious Scalehide. That's a lot scarier than a Spring Paw, I would say.
Yeah. And at some point, he's going to love to get this Master's Call in, which will likely be next turn, because he's going to have a 6 and a 3, which is conveniently 9.
Yeah.
Which is how much mana he'll have next turn, so good reason to postpone that. Also, high main, just press the button, just looks so comfortable.
It's really funny because we're in a Hunter Mirror match. It is turn 8. They are at 28 and 25 respectively.
It's such a weird matchup for that. It is fascinating. We don't see it very often either, which always makes matchups even more interesting.
It's kind of what I mean. Like, if both players had the tools to answer what the opponent's doing, and that's kind of what you want. You want to be able to answer your opponent's threats turn after turn. It's something that you can do in the Hunter Mirror with cards. With card advantage, specifically.
Whoa!
Zul'jin is important. However, Thijs has not played the spells that he's wanted to this game. We've not seen an Unleash the Beast from him, which is like the easiest way to get tempo with it. We've seen Master's Call.
Just looking at this freezing trap, this is so good against Bunnyhoppor's current situation. Depending on whether Bunnyhopper's going to have any rush minions or not in his hand. It just allows you to ignore the high main and say, okay, you've got to have a way of...
Well, remember that Bunny does have this Master's Call, so if he pulls a rush minion... Yeah, like
I just mean for where Thijs is sat, he's got to say, okay, if Bunnyhoppor has no way of playing a rush minion, freezing trap wins the game.
If you're going to do it, this is the turn to.
Yeah. And you've got 6 mana spare to just mess around and put some other bits and pieces down.
I mean, to fully answer this high main, you have to commit so many of your resources. It looks very ugly.
But you also get the freezing trap back in 2 turns' time if you Zul'jin at that point.
Yep. Looks like he's going to answer it. He's taking 6. He just took 6.
You were pulling me up in playtesting as well about, look, just don't take 6. Don't take 5. Just don't take damage if you can possibly help it. It's far more relevant than it looks in terms of how a normal control deck would function.
Well, remember that Thijs saw that Bunnyhoppor played a Savannah Hyman in this game. That means that there is 1 less Unleash the Hounds in his deck.
Yes.
Bunnyhoppor had to take an Unleash the Hounds out. Maybe this is just a calculated risk saying, hey, my opponent only has 1 of these cards now. If it's not in his hand, I just run away with this game.
Thijs is still quite clearly debating with himself whether I was right. He got to a point where doing something that makes sense is better than messing up on the rope. The second the rope starts going and you've got a plan in your head, even if you know it's not the best, if it makes some coherent sense, you just do that thing.
Bunny does not find an answer for this board that works out cleanly. He also does not have a Zul'jin.
Yeah, it's looked pretty good for him all game, and now we're looking at this, and suddenly Thijs has kept that Rhino, which suddenly looks like a really good decision, the way it's worked out, and Bunny's gonna really struggle here. He hasn't even got a way of dealing with much at all without throwing away his Tundra Rhino, which you just don't want to be doing.
And this is something about Specialists, where if you see your opponent doesn't have certain cards, you can actually play into that game plan a lot more, right? Like, let's say Bunny didn't play a Savannah Hyman in this game. Thijs had no way of knowing specifically that an Unleash the Hounds is cut.
Right.
With that knowledge, he can make a much more informed decision.
Yeah, and that's where I think Grandmasters in particular, where you get a day to actually practice that one matchup. You know what you're playing against, you know what their secondary and tertiaries do, their strengths and weaknesses. Yeah, and Bunny just had to go with the straightforward human being play for once here.
That is good. So this is a lot different from last game. He has the Zul'jin. Dire Frenzying before the Zul'jin is totally fine here. He doesn't have to worry about that extra little chance of not getting it.
Yeah, plus he's just killing his opponent.
Yeah, that's a good thing to do in this matchup. All right, step 1 for Bunny, answer this Tundra Rhino.
Yes. That's just critical. Right?
Step 2, hope your opponent doesn't have Zul'jin.
Yeah. Okay, how about if my opponent has Zul'jin? You have to hope they don't, right? You don't.
Yeah.
You likely don't beat it here unless you're going to top deck it next turn yourself.
It could be specifically only Master's Call in that Zul'jin, and you'd still be so unhappy with the way this game is panning out.
And actually, he is going to go for spells here, so he gives himself a good play for Zul'jin should he draw it as well, as it's being about the only way he can deal with the Rhino.
Going for the Dire Frenzy as well, saying...
Yeah, so that's lowering his Zul'jin chances, but he's got an army of 8/8 rush minions in his deck. So
I mean, I think it's
fine.
It's a calculated risk, right? Like sometimes you just have to say, okay, I'm in a pretty unfavored spot here. I have to go for the slightly weaker play.
Another thing about this Hunter deck is sometimes it looks like you can do anything. You can occupy the board, you can kill anything. Sometimes you just look at the hand and go, my deck does nothing. Why have I got these cards? Revenge of the Wild might be quite tasty down the line. Deadly Shot, not so much.
I think you just have to, like, math it out how the Zul'jin works. You know, like maybe you're trying to just do a super reactive play where you have board, your opponent has board, you trade in, and then you revenge the wild. But Deadly Shut is just more consistent, I would say. If there's a couple rushing 8/8s that are coming down at some point, why not have the answer?
Yeah, he even throws out the freezing trap there just to maximize all the efficiency. Which is really nice right now, because that 8/8 now does nothing. And you get the freezing trap back next turn. Oof.
Master's Call.
It's all about the time. Does he have time to play another Master's Call?
I mean, I think you just need your Zul'jin as soon as possible, right? He's going for Unleash the Hounds instead.
Job's done.
So, Thijs just recalculating how Zul'jin's going to work out here before then playing Zul'jin, most likely.
I think that it's just like, you know, you just keep track of everything you played so far. He's saying it's not good enough.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And he also, it's something you often don't want to do, but putting tracking into your pool with Zul'jin when you are a little bit low on cards can work out really well, draws you an extra card later. You're oofing there because you don't really want to lose 2 of these cards from your deck.
Well, that, and also it's a very good tracking.
Yeah.
These are all very good cards. I imagine it's Tundra Rhino.
Which one?
The left one. I like it better. I'm also left-handed.
Okay.
Fun fact.
Scary fact.
You don't like left-handed people? You know the word sinister? It's actually related to left-handedness.
Really?
Yes.
That makes sense to me. I think Sottle's left-handed.
Ah, yeah.
So that's my lifetime experience with left-handed people.
Yeah, it used to be like a really bad thing to be left-handed. Like people would specifically...
I thought you say it's a really bad thing to be Sottle.
Well, that goes without saying.
He can also get his revenge on me next week.
Yeah, Sada will be casting next weekend of Hearthstone Grandmasters, European region.
So Bunny successfully playing around the freezing trap, getting himself the 8/8 that he needs urgently into play.
Love it. Still needs his own Zul'jin.
Yes.
I think if he gets it next turn, he's actually in a pretty good spot here.
Yeah, he's played a lot of good things this game. Thijs gave the shake of the head that you sometimes see warrior players when they know they have to brawl. It's like, okay, I have one choice. I know it's my one choice. I'm going to think really hard about why it's not my one choice for 20 seconds and then do it, even though I don't like it.
I think you should just do it as soon as possible because you often have decisions after Zul'jin. I think that when you... Oh,
but he can't believe it. That 5 to face is more terrifying than it looks because now he's just in Thijs killing him with a Huffer and a hero power or 2 range. And Bunny is still sort of setting up his situation. So he now needs Zul'jin off the top.
I think that's been the case for like the last 4 turns, but especially now.
Yeah, he doesn't get the second draw at it, yeah.
Okay, so we also have this Tundra Rhino. You know that's a freezing trap. Do you just play the Hound now into the freezing?
I mean, do you have to mark shot your own Hound to try and get like a Master's Call to get yourself back in this? Is it that desperate?
I mean,
I don't like doing that thing. That's the second time I've mentioned something like that. But this time, you're so dead.
Maybe you're just looking for like even tracking at this point.
Like you really don't want to do that. But does this Hound actually get you to the end of the game?
He's saying nope. Maybe you just need the Zul'jin off the top. I think that's a fair argument.
Yeah.
You might still just juice it up here with a Hound and a Mark Shot. Makes your Zul'jin slightly better.
Pretty sure it's on his mind because it's such a... You don't want to make this play without really thinking about it hard. And what else is he thinking about?
You don't often Mark Shot your own minions, but it does come up every so often. I'm sure it's something that Bunnyhoppor spots. He's like, I kind of have to do this at some point.
I wonder.
Is it harder to make those decisions when you know there's thousands of people watching you? It shouldn't be, but is it?
I think that it's It can be. I think it'd be really hard to say, oh, this looks dumb. Someone might say I'm dumb. I don't think it's hard for Bunny. I think Bunny's been...
He's Bunny.
Yeah, Bunny is very calm on camera, I would say. I don't think he doesn't play nervously on camera.
It can be a tough crowd out there sometimes.
Yes.
Just occasionally.
Yeah, so he's just going for the mark shot. Taking snipe, he already has a deadly shot. But Thijs is just in a fantastic spot here.
He actually took, I mean, I know he was low on rope as well, but he took the snipe instantly as if he'd got what he was looking for there.
This is sometimes lethal from a Thijs perspective. I think you play your animal companion and then attack with that first. However, there's just like a lot of stuff that you have to worry about with the secret up. You know, there's a lot of things that could happen. Freezing trap and then Bunnyhoppor deadly shots the Tundra Rhino. You no longer have it.
Yeah, you don't really want to misdirection yourself.
Yeah.
Not really.
Well, I think for Thijs, he's okay doing that, but like he doesn't know that it's specifically a misdirection. If he knew it was exactly misdirection, then I'm sure like this play becomes a lot easier.
It might heal Bunnyhoppor for 8. That would be really bad.
Oh, you know what's
that's
really
a different
funny?
class.
You know what's... Oh, never mind. I was... No, actually, no, this does work. If you attack, it hits your 5/8, and you had a snake trap up, doesn't it... No, it doesn't proc the snake trap. I'm sorry. I apologize.
But this is going to work out fine.
That's how Mass Hysteria works. You know how Mass Hysteria, if you have snake trap up, you get it. But since it's Thijs' turn, it would not happen that way.
Yeah, advanced Hearthstone rules are fascinating. I think nobody in the world knows them all, apart from the... I don't know who it is, but the person who maintains the advanced rulebook on Wikipedia is pretty insane. It is there for everybody to see.
I've seen it once. It's just very, 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 very long. Yeah.
Or you can just load up the game and try to get the interaction to happen and remember it.
Bunnyhoppor does have lethal here with kill command on his own face.
Okay. So if they're at a LAN now, because I just walk around.
So Bunny has to say, okay, do I ever win this game if I get Zul'jin right off the top? And the answer is, we'll have to find out. I doubt it very much.
Yeah, sometimes you don't even need to work it out, right? It's just like, there's no other way I'll win this game ever.
Yeah.
So let's stay alive and hope. Oh, okay, he's going for the secret setup as well, not only because it protects him, but it just gives Thijs more to worry about.
Yep. Kill command is lethal.
1-1.
Puts it to 1-1. I think that, like, we kind of saw what happened here, right? Person without Zul'jin just kind of struggled in the end of the game. It's a good card.
And now they've got to decide, do they stick with that secondary deck? The high mains were... It's so hard to judge how much the high mains did in that game, because obviously they're eating resources, but they never actually looked like they did anything at all.
I think it still comes down to mind games. I wouldn't be surprised if they stuck with that for Game 3. I think that talking about it makes a lot of sense. High main was just like a very powerful and impactful card in that series where you play it, your opponent had to commit a lot of resources to it. I mean, obviously it wasn't the end-all be-all where like maybe Zul'jin comes into play, but it's still like something that you play in the mid-game and it just like carries you to a comfortable spot where you can play the Zul'jin. So I think that staying on it makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and we are hearing they are both going to stick with the secondary deck, so that's what their testing has concluded, because we were slightly unsure as to whether you would always play it or if it's just something you'd do 70% of the time. A lot of the game theory stuff in there. It'd be interesting to find out what they see it as. But they're going for it here.
Yeah, I mean, like, I was even considering the tertiary deck. I don't think it's right, but, like, maybe there is that 1 or 2% of the time where you just queue it up. You play a rat trap on turn 2, and your opponent's like, oh, what's happened?
Yeah, and that is one of the things with Specialists, the way that you don't have the choice of all of your cards. You have to stick to the secondary, tertiary. In the building phase, obviously, you aim those at your weak spots to the large degree. But if you can make them kind of work for another match, like this isn't the board for the mirror, this is the board for the control decks.
Well,
but it kind of works in the mirror.
Yeah, it is really interesting because I feel like their lists aren't hard targeted. Like sometimes in Specialists, you might have a deck that says, okay, I'm trying to beat mechs, so I'm going to put in 2 EMP Operatives, 2 Spellbreakers, and an Owl. Well, this is just adding, you know, Savannah Hymains and Unleash the Beast. Good cards, they do beat control, but it's not like a card that you just play and you win the game.
Just looking at Ty's reaction there, I thought he was having like a breakdown or something, but he's just got such a hard choice because his hand is all the cards that are good that aren't Master's Call.
Yeah, so I wonder if he just decides to one-keep Savannah Hyman again. I imagine he does.
It's weird, the psychology of having two of them and thinking, oh, I like this card, I'll keep one.
Yeah.
To only having one. Somehow it feels easier to throw it away when there's only one in your hand.
And he does that. It is pretty interesting.
That's really weird.
Well, maybe he's saying Unleash the Beast is just a better card than Hyman. You can
Yeah.
go coin Unleash and do Unleash in turn 6. It's kind of like your mid-game totally mapped out. And that's something that he did not have last game.
Bunny does, unsurprisingly, throw everything away there. And Bunny's looking good for getting that early board, but Thijs has the good cards. And I think good cards beat early board in this matchup at the moment.
Yeah, Master's Call is just so powerful. If Thijs gets even one answer to this Animal Companion, he's going to sail through to the mid-game.
The mid-game being precisely turn 6.
Yes, exactly, turn 6.
And of course, when you got 2 6 drops, it's actually turn 5 because you get coins and oh.
Ty's probably considering whether he plays this 1-1 or not. I think if it was a Spring Paw, he'd probably just jam it immediately. But Timberwolf is a lot more important later in the game.
Yeah, when you've played them, you give your opponent. When you played both in particular, your opponent can just do what they like a lot more because there's not the sort of the Hound's ridiculous kill from out of nowhere. So it's not so much that it's bad to play; it's bad that they've both gone. It frees up your opponent's playing skill and style.
Decides not to play it. I agree with that. I think that holding back on Timberwolf is really important. You dodge just like getting run over by a vicious Scale High turn 2. Also, Spring Paw is a really good punish to that card because you're pretty much trading one card for half a card from your opponent.
It's also just good practice on turn 1 to look at your hand, especially in a game that's complicated like this one. Go, okay, what's my current plan for the next few turns? Just so you don't have to rethink that every turn. It's already in your head from turn 1 onwards.
Also, you're convincing your opponent that you have plays that you're considering. Like if Thijs just passes turn 1 immediately, Bunny is like, okay, he has nothing. I can just play out this hand in a certain way. Bunny being pretty liberal with his vicious Scale Hide makes a lot of sense. He has the second one in his hand, so he doesn't need to worry about losing that Dire Frenzy out.
And now we get to the couple of turns for Thijs where he doesn't do a lot. This is where Bunny can capitalize. He's going to have to, more to the point, not he can. It's going to be nothing into Master's Call quite a lot of the time. Unless Thijs wants to coin out the Master's Call. And
I think it's actually a really interesting decision because you want to play that card as soon as possible. You need your resources from your deck. Master's Call finds those and also makes it easier to find the spells that act as removal tools. The problem is for him right now is that he has a Savannah Highmane and an Unleash the Beast. Obviously, his plan is to go coin 6 into 6, so if he goes coin Master's Call right now, it's kind of like the two game plans that he wants to do both of them, but they are kind of at odds with each other.
so he's decided, okay, what's the worst that can happen? Well, the worst that can happen is this Animal Companion probably being a huffer and hitting you for 5, and then next turn you don't really want to Master's Call anymore.
I mean, I think just Animal Companion in general is a card you do not want to see in this spot if you're Thijs. It means that you're going Master's Call into a turn where you're taking at least 5.
Yeah.
Sometimes 3 with a Leok, but if they have a Dire Frenzy afterwards, you're just so upset.
Just looking at what Bunny's other options are, and just don't seem to be many.
Misha is big. Coin Mark Shot is not available for Thijs.
Yeah, so he's going to have to take a lot of damage and try and play on the defensive from that point onwards, I think.
Even if he plays his Master's Call, it's unlikely that he has an answer for it next turn as well. He needs to get his Spring Paw.
Unleash and Wolf?
But if you play Master's Call now, you're going to overdraw your next card. You don't give yourself any chance to draw a Mark Shot if you don't coin as well. But then if you're coining, then you can't play your coin 6 into 6.
Yeah, if you're unleashing and wolfing as well, you just got this horrible, totally alien-looking play just to kill a 4/4, and then Bunnyhoppor's got 2 turns to develop more stuff. But if you don't do that, the stuff's already there.
He's playing Master's Call, which means he's probably overdrawing. I don't see a world where he really wants to coin anything from his hand. I think mana matters more than cards if he plays Master's Call. Coin is more important than any card from his deck.
Yeah. I mean, they haven't gone to fatigue, so the card from the deck that's burned shouldn't be relevant in the long run. Obviously, it'll be relevant if it's Zoltid.
In the long run, this game is going to last maybe 2 more turns at this rate.
Right. I mean, I'm sorry, I mean the long run in terms of if you play this game 1,000 times, it wouldn't be that impactful if you burn a
Sure. Second kill command. What if Bunny just plays a second scale hide here? Just goes face for 7. He's got 2 kill commands to kill his opponent from 10. A lot of times if you're in this spot as Thijs, you're saying, okay, maybe 1 kill command I can beat, but there's no way I beat 2, so I'm just not going to play around it.
Yeah, and he hasn't got the time, from where Bunny said, Thijs hasn't got the time to set up Scale Hide into Dire Frenzy. It's just way too slow.
I'm not even sure if Thijs has the time to play around 1 kill command in this spot. He might just say, hey, any damage, I'm dead.
So from where Bunny said as well, we're talking about the basics there of I'm going to try and kill you. He also has the high main in hand, so the secondary consideration is I'm going to try and kill you or tie you up enough that on turn 6, if you've dealt with all this shenanigans, I'm just going to plop a high main and force you to do it all again, and all the time I've still got these 2 kill commands waiting for you.
I think what Bunny's just thinking about right now is if there's any way to play around some Unleash the Beat or Unleash the Hounds weird combo, and it's looking like he's doing that. Playing Spring Ball here kind of signals that he's not oh, I guess he is still developing into the board. He's saying that this is slightly better than playing Vicious Scale Hide. Because maybe somehow he ends up back on the back foot and you have the Scale Hide Dire Frenzy combo for later. That is interesting though. I feel like I would have put the Scale Hide there instead.
I guess with Thijs having such a massive hand, you can put a... Yeah, we talk about reads, but just math says Thijs has got some good cards in his hand right now. Bunny can really plot ahead very carefully for how this is going to go. Maybe he feels it doesn't always get there.
I mean, you know that a lot of cards in Thijs' hands right now is Beasts. Beasts kind of work well with each other. You know, Timberwolf, Spring Paw Lynx is just a good combo that you very often get. Thijs is going for instead just Unleash the Hounds. It makes a lot of sense. It summons 3 instead of 2. Uses all of your mana.
Yeah, this just gives Thijs more issues to deal with while the high main's still lurking.
So I think Bunny's game plan right now is just develop the biggest board for Thijs to deal with, that Bunny can just land a high main unchallenged.
Yeah, and I think that's what he was going for even last turn. Is I don't think I quite have the gas to get there as often as I'd like. I need to land the high main.
Sure, but now we're looking at a spot where holding the Vicious Scale Hide instead of the Spring Paw Lynx gets slightly punished. Because instead of going Scale Hide, Scavenging Hyena this turn, we'd instead be going Spring Paw into the 1/1, making a bigger Scavenging Hyena, plus a hero power. So
quite a lot of damage and buffs missed.
Yeah, so I think the way it panned out is a little bit more awkward had Bunny just like instead gone for the Scale Hide last turn. I think that deviating from the kill your opponent game plan right now as Bunny doesn't make a lot of sense. You know, you could say the Scale Hide for the Dire Frenzy, but I just don't think the game really ever pans out that way in its current spot.
Yeah, and Headhunter's Hatchet is really nice for Thijs here. It gives him something on the board for next turn. An unkillable minion, so it's nice. That's what weapons are. They're unkillable minions.
Well, there's Harrison Jones, but that's not
He doesn't kill them, he just locks them up.
That'd be really funny if you just like tack that in as your Beast Hunter. You go Master Skull into Harrison Jones.
Oh. Be right back. Just going to try this on ladder.
Yeah. You know, people used to do that with Skulking Geist. You were playing mid-range Hunter, there was stuff like Mechathune Druid, where if you just played a Skulking Geist at any point, you got rid of their Naturalized, they couldn't win. So you just put in 2 Skulking Geists in your deck, because Master Skull would find it. And yeah, you don't get any of the other beasts, but you just play a card that wins the game. Which I find really funny. You know, sometimes Master Skull acts as like this very expensive creature tutor.
And actually, in Specialists in particular, that would be pretty relevant.
Yeah, it was Specialist, and it was very relevant.
Yeah.
It's funny to think about how Master's Call could just be a 3-mana discover a minion that isn't a beast.
Yeah, any card that says cheap, find the card you want.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why that card doesn't exist very often. Sometimes you can twist them into doing that.
Yeah, it's funny because like right now it's just being abused as a draw 3 when it could actually just be like a creature tutor. We don't actually have many of those in Hearthstone right now. I think like Witchwood Piper.
Yeah, I think it's a very conscious. I mean, I've got no insight, but I think it's a very conscious decision not to have cards that just say find the card you want without punishment.
Yeah, consistency in Hearthstone.
It would be too scary, I think.
It gets a little bit scary, yeah. We also really have none for spells. There's nothing that says find this specific mana cost spell right now. I mean, there was like Archaeologist for secrets, but those aren't, you know.
So what you do instead is you play Mana Cyclone and draw 10
Ah,
cards,
yeah.
and then you find the spell you want because weight of numbers is on your side.
That always works.
That's how it's supposed to work, at least. And we saw this in game 1, but the other way around, where the person on the early attack, if they don't... Ooh, this helps. How much just straight face can he do here?
I'm counting 9.
I'm counting 9 too. That's a lot.
I guess technically you could just kill command your opponent in the face, and that's 13, but you probably want to weave in.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep those back and weave in a hero power return.
Yeah.
And if your opponent doesn't have Scale Hide Frenzy, you would win the game. But it's a massive if.
The other problem with doing that is that if your opponent somehow manages to clear the entire board, then your kill commands are no longer active. If you go...
You'll draw a beast.
Well, sometimes you don't. What if you draw like Zul'jin? Yeah, it's a good card, but...
And then you just double kill command them, and then you play Zul'jin and double kill command them again.
Ah, that's very smart.
You're good at Hearthstone.
You always do that. Kind of like Mana Cyclone into the 10 perfect cards you need.
Highlighting the... Yeah, exactly. Just highlighting this life drink again. We raised it in the preamble. Like, that will mess with the calculations if Bunnyhoppor does decide to go for something very face-orientated, which he has done, in fact, here.
Thijs sees this and he's saying, okay, Life Drinker gets a lot better, for sure.
Yeah, he now knows there's a very good chance there's another kill command in hand.
I don't think he's playing around the second unleash, though. I actually think this is really smart from Bunny because he now manages to weave in the hero power with the 6 mana from the Unleash the Hounds plus the kill command. He does lose out on the Timberwolf value. However, the value he gains from the hero power, or the damage he gains from the hero power, probably evens it out.
I mean, it's easy for us to see, but I've always found it so great when a player, he knows what's in Thijs' hand. He knows that if this goes any longer, he doesn't win the game.
Yeah.
Okay, weight of numbers helps, but even we've seen him do this in level games where you've got like 4 cards each, and he realizes, no, I can't win without launching this all at the face. And actually, it's put so much pressure onto Thijs here.
Thijs isn't playing the Life Drinker here. I
think he's read it as a bluff. I think he's like, Bunnyhoppor hasn't got it.
I think that means that Bunnyhoppor just takes this game. I don't see a way for... This is just exact lethal, right? 1 + 5 + 2. Yeah, Bunnyhoppor is going to take this 2-1.
2-1 Bunnyhoppor getting revenge for week 1 and continuing a pretty good run of form on the back of Vegas 9-3. And I think that Thijs' decision, if you're not careful, doesn't look like a good one last turn. But in the grand scheme of things, Bunnyhoppor is more than capable, we've seen it many times, of not having that second kill command.
Yeah.
If I do that to you on ladder, I've got the second kill command.
Oh, no, I do not fault Thijs at all there. I think that, you know, you have to take risks a lot of time in Hearthstone, especially when you're on the back foot. He took it, and Bunny had the punish. Sometimes that's how it happens.
Yeah, and puts him into 5-4, which is, I mean, obviously it's just over 50%. That's how numbers work. But when 3 out of 8 people are going to the playoffs, being just over 50% is just getting into where you want to be. With another match coming up tomorrow, 6-4 would be a fantastic spot for him. Yeah, because Fino's killed everyone, so you don't need to worry about the fact that everybody's lost to Fino. It's like a 7-man division at this point. Yeah, it's really funny. Is that around like 55, 56-ish%? That's actually how Grandmasters on average performed in Vegas. That's crazy. Yeah, so if they all perform 55% against each other, they'll all be 5-4. I don't think that's really how it works, Lorinda. Maybe. Maybe the math checks out, but I'm going to give it a hard pass right now. An F for Lorinda. Yeah. But luckily, we have a Bunnyhoppor to stop me from talking such nonsense. Have a chat with him, see how he felt about recent events.
Hello.
Hey, Bunnyhoppor, can you hear us?
Yep.
That's good. Congratulations on a win that's getting you into the positive in this. That last turn, well, the turn before the last one was pretty easy. What was going through your mind in terms of how you win this game?
I was like, well, I don't have any value, even though I have 2 high mains, like 2 Master's Calls, Smart Shots, everything in my deck. So I need to kill him. So that kill command goes face at some point anyway. So that for sure happens. And then hero power always happens because that's extra mana. And then I was thinking, how much does my Timberwolf at maximum push, right? And in this turn it does 2, which is pretty poor overall. But, I mean, it leaves me 8 mana for the turn after, which is, I mean, I kind of realized that after I passed the turn. I was like, oh yeah, I have exactly enough mana for Unleash, Kill Command, Hero Power. I didn't even realize when I did my turn, because that wasn't the first consideration. The consideration was like, how much does this Timberwolf push this game?
Yeah.
And I figured it wasn't going to be more than 2.
Yeah, that looked like a pretty smart calculation. Were you always going to go with a secondary deck there in the mirror, or was that a bit of mind games because you have 3 fairly distinct choices there?
I think you always go with the secondary deck, because the way that this game usually kind of unfolds is how you saw in game 1. We both do some stuff, and then around turn 6, 7, 8, 9, nobody's really dying. Somebody Dire Friends uses Scale Hide. The game stalemates, and you have nothing to do because you have only reactive cards in your hand with like March shots and whatever. So you can't really do anything. And then you really want Savannah High Main on the one hand, and on the other hand, a lot of those games are decided by Zul'jin, and very late in the game where like one person Zul'jins and the other person counter Zul'jins, and you need to have to unleash the beast in your deck to be able to make this consistent. Like you could see his Zul'jin game 1, if it didn't Kill Command my face, and if it didn't Arcane Shot my face, it was just straight up garbage.
Yeah, you reacted really.
It drew 1 card, tracked through his deck, made him almost fatigued, doesn't do anything. Like, it's terrible as long as you don't have Unleash the Beast. I mean, luckily for him, the stuff went face, so, whatever. But if you don't have these things in your deck, the Zul'jin just becomes bad and doesn't win you the game.
All right, I have a question for you. I feel like the mulligans with this deck, especially in the mirror, are very strange. Like we see people keeping Unleash the Beast and Savannah High Main. How often do you see those cards and say, hey, I actually really want these in the mirror? Like, do you keep Savannah High Main very often or Unleash the Beast very often?
No, I mean, I keep Unleash the... Okay, so on ladder, I keep Unleash the Beast if I know it's another mid-range hunter in my opening hand, if I'm on coin and I play my primary deck, because there's only one of them in the deck, and like I said, you need it for a Zul'jin later to be able to contest the board, and it kind of fills out your empty turns around turn 6. But I don't think you keep Savannah High Main or Unleash the Beast in your secondary deck, especially not if you're going first, because if you're going first, you're at like disadvantage going overall in the flexibility of your game plan. So you just keep everything that is cheap, everything that applies pressure to your opponent. So, in practice, it was terrible, but because as soon as you draw 1 Master's Call, which is like the best card in your deck for that matchup, the second High Main or the High Main that you want to play just becomes so clunky and you never play it, and you take away a hand space, and that's terrible.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for that insight, Bunnyhoppor. I think you've helped a lot of people out with their mulligans and their play in that deck. Congratulations on the win, and may see you again tomorrow.
Thank you.
Bunnyhoppor, they're offering a chunk of insight into how to play Hearthstone.
Helping a lot of people.
Yeah.
Helping maybe even Thijs a little bit.
Me quite. Yeah, and helping Thijs maybe a little bit, who did keep that Savannah High Main. Yeah. And I think we highlighted at the time, when you've got 2 of them, sometimes the temptation is, because you can't draw one of them back. So it's slightly less clunky, but yeah, you said at the time that with the Master's Call, exactly what Bunnyhoppor was saying.
And we even saw at that game where he had the coin 6 and a 6, but he still had to like divert from that game plan. The Master's Call was something that he needed to cast, and he ended up having to go coin a 1-drop instead. So he just had to divert from that 6 and a 6 game plan.
Yeah, and then suddenly he hasn't got the cards to deal with on turns 3 and 4. That's just the first match of the day here at Europe Grandmasters. Hearthstone out of the way. Said all the words in the wrong order, which I love doing. We're going to set up match number 2 for you, so don't go anywhere. We'll see you in just a moment.